Hi, my name is Keegan Flegner. When I was in first grade, I was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. Since then, sports have played a huge role in helping me to cope with the mental and developmental challenges of being on the spectrum. So I want to help show the world that all kinds of sports can help all kinds of people with all kinds of challenges. Welcome to Sports on the Spectrum. My guest today is Steve Hodge. Steve played basketball collegiately and professionally around the world for many years before becoming a FIBA-certified referee and then later going into coaching. After tenures at places such as the LA Clippers and Caltech, Steve became the Varsity boys basketball head coach at Pacifica Christian High School as I entered my senior year there. And while I wasn't the star player and didn't play for many minutes that year, Steve was humble enough to name me as one of 3 team captains, instilling a sense of value and leadership that I still hold dear. Additionally, Steve is the Chief Operations Officer of Breakthrough Sports, an award-winning youth sports program for kids playing sports like basketball, volleyball, and baseball throughout Southern California. Please join me in welcoming Steve Hodge to Sports on the Spectrum. All right, Steve. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I guess I'll start off this interview like I do with pretty much all my interviews. And I'll start off at the beginning. And what I mean is the beginning of your life. And I'll ask, what are some of your first memories of sports? And this can be watching them on TV, going to a game, following your favorite team, whatever. And like, what did you like about them too? Like, what stood out about them?
Yeah, I think my fondest or my earliest memories, I can probably track back to Reading, Pennsylvania, with my family, my cousin Tony, my uncle Robert, all of my cousins. Basketball was the sport. My grandparents had a children's home, so they had, we had full access to a gym and all of that good stuff. But I just remember being awful. I mean, god awful. I remember being called Luke Skywalker, not because I could jump, but because when I got the ball, I would just run from my cousins, just so I had enough space to dribble and attempt whatever terrible shot I would shoot. And then I would say years later, 1988, the year of Jordan. He had many of them, but that was the first year where I fell in love with his shoes. I fell in love with the way he walked, the way he chewed his gum. The 1988 All-Star Weekend, my uncle lent me the VHS tape. So I watched the 3-point contest over and over again. Larry Bird, Craig Hodges, I believe it was. And then Jordan, Drexler, Dominique. Yep. I watched that thing over and over again. And as you know, 88, I'm talking about All-Star MVP, League MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, scoring champ, and more than anything, the shoes. 1988, I believe that was the Jordan 3. I could be wrong. If it's not 3, it's 5. But either way, it was one of my favorite pair of shoes as well. So that is my earliest memory of sport.
No, man, that totally makes sense. It's funny you mentioned the shoes because they just had a movie just came out about how those shoes were invented and stuff, which was amazing, by the way.
I watched
Great
it
movie.
twice. I went to the movies twice. Fantastic.
Yeah, that was a great movie. And it's funny you mentioned like that was the first thing like you got your hands on. I remember you told me the story. It's like those shoes were the first thing you ever spent your own money on, money you had made, had gotten through whatever. It's like that's the first thing you ever spent your own money on. And I was like,
first thing that made sense outside of like, I don't know, I didn't make my own money, but like Battle Cat from like
right.
He-Man. But those shoes were like a mandate. I would have died for those shoes.
Yeah, no, you'll do anything for a good pair of shoes, Like I don't have many great shoes myself, but it's like I do treasure the ones I do have. Like I got a pair of Kawhis that are like so dear to my heart. It's ridiculous. So I'm totally feeling you there. And I guess, I'll build off of that a little and ask, you talked about your first memories buying shoes, which I would imagine is something that really sticks with you. But I'll also ask, aside from that, what are some of your favorite memories from your own sports experience,
Oh man, I had quite a few. The favorite ones would be, I can't go without it, just watching. One of them, if I can tell it quickly, is my freshman year. I joke and I say I'm 5'10", but at the end of the day, I was about 5'8", 5'9", 5'10" in like 5th, 6th grade, which means that I was huge to people. So I acted accordingly and I played that way. I was really quick. I wasn't a fantastic ball handler, but I was fast enough to get by people or just flat out beat them. The handle was good enough. The shot was terrible, but good enough. All of those athletic feats I was able to accomplish. But I remember my freshman year being challenged by my JV coach to become a point guard and become a point guard with a timeline attached to it. You've got about 2 weeks to figure this out, and I'm going to get someone else if you can't figure this out. And by the way, varsity's filled, freshman is also filled. So if you don't figure this out, you probably have nowhere to play. So watching myself go through the process of learning how to train, how to eliminate some of the weaknesses, and also seeing that manifest immediately, that's one of them. And then more than anything, I didn't play in the NBA. I just wasn't good enough. And I think that guys who play overseas sometimes are good enough, but the situation wasn't right. My case was that I don't think I was big enough or strong enough or all of those things. I just wasn't good enough at the end of the day, but I had an opportunity to play. And my first year with a really good team, a really exciting team, we had it at every position times two. My first year out, we won a championship. We won the country championship as well as the league championship, and it wasn't even close. We were running through people by 20 and 25 points, and that was incredible. And I didn't even realize how incredible it was till years later, because you know how hard it is to win a championship. So, winning that was a big deal, a real big deal.
Totally, man. As someone who, played in rec league, a little bit of travel ball, and then, high school all the way up to varsity level, it's like, I know what winning a championship means. It's like, it does not come that often. And it's funny enough that you mentioned, winning a championship in places like you played, because I just came back from a conference in Vegas where I got to meet some of those guys who, played overseas, still are actually, but they played overseas their entire careers. And, it's like they've managed to, they've won championships, but they've only won them a couple times, even if they're like MVPs in that league. It's like, it just does not come that often. So
Ours have to align, man. Everything has to go right. Health, you know what I mean? Everything has to go right. It's tough.
It is tough, man. And, unfortunately for a lot of us, we don't even get that chance. So the fact that you managed to get it is something to smile about. And the fact that, as someone who, it's like you mentioned, it's like you weren't tall enough. You had to find other ways to excel at the game. It's like you found those ways. Like, you were better than me in the sense you got to play overseas. I didn't get to do that. I just got up to high school senior year. It's like, after that, I can't go anywhere. It's just, yeah. So there's a lot to smile about there. And I guess I'll kind of, build off of that as well. And let's talk about your basketball career a little more in the sense, why don't you give me a timeline of how it started and where you are now?
Okay. So, oh man, you talk about choppy or chunks of that. What do they say? How do you eat an elephant? You know what I mean? One bite at a time.
Yeah, one bite at a time. You can't do it in one bite.
Right. For me, like I said, I want to go ahead and say I was a late bloomer. In the sense of being competitive. I think I was always, strong and fast and athletic, for a kid. But as far as basketball goes, I was untrained. I didn't play on all the AAU teams and travel teams. That wasn't my story. It was becoming a big deal around my time. There were guys who were elite that were playing in those arenas, but I wasn't there. So I was still the guy who would go watch the games and then come back to the park and try the moves and, try to put my spin on it because I was only 5'10". At 5'10", you're doing fadeaways like Jordan, but the truth is he's 6'6". There's a different reason and there's a different perspective of how he moves and how he goes about his business. So for me, I was pretty much self-taught, and my wife kind of opened me up to that idea years later when she was like, I don't think you give yourself enough respect for what you've done with the game, having not really had a trainer or having not had access to these, AAU teams and really not, just a basketball in a gym when possible, but most of the time outside, outdoors, working on the jump shot, working on the handle, playing myself one-on-one up and down the floor. And, that took me to high school, which was choppy as well. My body wasn't prepared for that rigor because I had never lifted a weight. I was, doing push-ups and crunches the way I seen on Above the Rim, the movie. So I'm doing those things. I never had a true weight program. So I'm talking all the way up to senior year of high school. I hadn't really had access to those things. So it was really, just, trial and error, and having successes and failing sometimes, and, getting to the park or finding a summer league wherever I could around the city of Hartford, and just, somebody's backyard, a friend who played, a cousin who played, just playing whenever I could. But no matter how you slice it. Once you put the time in, the time is the time. The dribbles are the dribbles, the shots are the shots. No matter where you're doing it or how you're doing it, those things, will manifest in some capacity. So high school, I didn't have a great career. I did start my sophomore year, which was a big deal in the city that I was at, with, athletes and players all over, saturated with talent, saturated with talent. Transferred schools junior year and had limited success as I got injured. My body wasn't prepared. So I broke 2 bones my junior and senior year. I thought I had some promise, but there was a summer camp that our coach put us into. And I think that might have been my senior year. But either way, it was off-site. I think it was in Maine or something like that, in the woods. And there was a bunch of teams there, and I did really well. I did really, really well. So much so that I got like my first recruitment letters from Division III, if you want to call those recruiting, because they don't offer scholarships. A lot of people make it seem like they do, but they don't. They can offer you a good, package, a good financial aid package, maybe some housing and maybe some summer work or something like that. But I got a bunch of letters, and I put those in my Nike box, and it was gold to me. I was achieving something. Someone wanted me. I felt wanted, and my work was manifesting. But that didn't, I still thought that I wanted more. As a late bloomer, I thought I wanted more. I thought there was more for me. I believed in myself, and I bet on myself. So I opted to go to a junior college, no scholarship offered, and I made the team, and eventually became one of the top scorers in the region at my spot. And then, that second year, I got a look. Thank God, my father and some of the OGs or old school dudes would say, you just need one person to see you. And I had one person see me and offer me a partial ride to a NAIA school in South Carolina. And I took that and I ran with it. I hadn't even got my associates completely yet. I just ran. My father was like, go, you need it. You need a different, yep, go. So I chased it, got down there, and was expecting, I have no idea what to expect. I'm just here. And I had a fantastic stat year. We didn't do well, but I had a fantastic stat year where the coach pretty much gave me the ball, was like, do you? And I was able to articulate myself and express myself for the first time freely. And boy, I got busy. And, from there, I kind of have my sights set on, I recognize that I'm probably not an NBA player because I know what those look like. In the summer, when I come home, I'm watching some of those guys. I'm playing against some of those guys. I'm probably not there, but I do believe someone, if I do it right, would be willing to offer me a dollar or two to play the game. And, I set my sight on that. I had some things line up with the uncle who was out of the country in the military with his wife. And they offered me the opportunity to come to England and try out for teams. I made a team, and the rest is kind of history. But it was kind of all on my own merit, so to speak, not like doing this. But I never truly had an agent. That's just the story of my life. I kind of make it work with what I have. I'll make cake without eggs. So that's kind of my career. And I played on and off for about 8 to 10 years. And then eventually I got married and set my sights on doing something else. That sent me out to California, and here I am talking to you.
Here you are talking to me, man, and honestly, look, I mean, again, like I said earlier, I'm not as good as you when it comes to basketball. I'm never probably going to play it professionally ever in my life, but, I totally relate to you in the sense that the way you got good is just, you did it on your own, in the sense you didn't look for help. You didn't go to teams. And honestly, like you, I also had that kind of stubborn feeling of like, I deserve to like play like with the best of them, Like I should have realized coming into, varsity basketball at Pacifica, it's like, I'm not playing with a guy from Bulgaria who, should be playing D1 college,
Right,
to be
right,
completely fair, or someone
right,
who is actually going to play D1 college in a year. It's like,
right,
you
right,
know, it's like
right.
I got no chance with those guys. But it's like, you give it all you got, you stay persistent, and lucky for you, you actually got something out of it,
Right,
and so did I. Like, to
right.
say I didn't gain anything in high school basketball would be a complete lie. It would be a complete lie. It's like you learn so much about just playing the game as long as you can, you'll learn something no matter how long or how little you play it. It's like that's
You
what
go
made me
way,
fall in love with it,
yeah, way beyond the game as well. I mean, and someone like you who was mature enough to recognize the intrinsic value of it too. I was able to pick those up a little later. I'm going to say you probably matured faster than I. I was just
Straight
so
off.
competitive. I just wanted to prove myself. That's all I really wanted. And so I jokingly call it, minimum wage basketball is what I played for 8 to 10 years. But so what? I mean, there's so much to be gained from seeing these other countries and being told to no and learning how to be, how to accept that this may not work for you or that will work for you, and having to navigate that terrain on your own, with no agent is tough. But I'm just like, you have the internet, there's just really no excuse if you can play the game. If you bang on enough doors, someone will open it, and you just got to get in there and produce, So that's my story.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned that, because at least for me, even as someone who only played through high school, to me, you were actually the person who opened one of those doors for me, because before you came in, I thought I was done playing high school basketball, because I had made varsity for junior year, but then but technically both me and the coach agreed like that I would go back down to JV, and I was just like, all right, Keegan, it's like you'll play it out the rest of the year, but I don't know if it's going anywhere where after this. And then you came in and like you just had a fresh set of eyes, and you
Yeah.
know, I
Well,
was just like, let's take
think back.
advantage.
I don't know if you can think back to day one.
I remember this.
I just had a couple of odd end drills that I would use with my kids. And I just wanted to see what the reception would be for doing things a little different, which to me, just erased any political
Mhm.
presence. It also made everything, kind of fair. I just wanted to
Mhm.
see what was there. And who are we kidding? That first year, we didn't have a cupboard full of, stuff. But nonetheless, I was like, we got to make some dinner here, you know what I mean? And we got to eat. So let's just go ahead. And for me, I'm going to push back when you say that, I gave you a shot. I may have given you the shot, but I also believe that you did that. You know what I mean? Unlike some other coaches, I kind of don't see myself as a career coach. Some coaches are really here for the career of it, and they want to expand and go where they go. I kind of let the game take me wherever it takes me. And I kind of like try to lend my talents, gifts. But at the end of the day, I am a dad. I am a firm believer in people. And I'm like, there still needs to be leadership here. And no matter whether he plays a minute or 35 minutes, I mean, we have a strong, because that schedule wasn't for kids. It was a
Mm-mm.
kind of a tough schedule. And I'm like, whether Keegs plays a lot or he plays a little, it's good for these kids to see someone show up every day, give it their all. It's good for people to see him fight through his stuff, his his limitations, quote unquote, if there are limitations,
I
and
mean,
also to recognize like whether he plays a minute or not, he's going to keep a good attitude. He's not going to become a cancerous figure. And not just that, making you a captain was easy because the maturity for our team just wasn't there. Flat out, it wasn't there. And you need someone to be consistent and be the adult in the room. And I thought you were that. So I'm going to push back and say, I may have made the call, but you did the work.
I mean, look, man, I'm never one to shy away from putting in the work to get something, but I will say it's like there's people out there, like this is part of the reason I do this. It's like there are people out there who just hear or see something, they hear the word autism, they hear the word mental health, they hear or they see someone do something, like, not look at a person when they're talking, when they're giving instructions, and they're just like, nope, that kid isn't part of this. And the fact that you ignored all of that just to give me a chance to prove myself to you and then earn that, like that to me is just as important as earning it itself, because it's one thing to, be given a real fair chance to prove yourself. It's another thing to not even have the chance to run to the door while it's still open, you know?
Right. Oof. You said that well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny also, you know, let me be clear. Like, this wasn't all rain and shine. It's like you said, like, I did not play that much because, you know, there were better players. That's true. And I freely acknowledge that. And I'll tell you this, that one thing I'll never forget, that you taught me like one of the hardest lessons anyone can learn, but I'm glad you were the one who taught me it because I trusted you. I took it to heart because it was true. It's not personal. It's just business, you know, which is someone who's had things be personal in the past. That's what makes it hard for me to accept, you know, but at the same time, you were able to put it in a way, including making me a captain. Like, that actually made me feel like I could do something to this, contribute to this team still. Like, the way you put it, that made me take it to heart and be like, he's right. You know, I can still do something, even if maybe it's not what I thought I was going to be doing. And just, you know, that made it the year we had, even if it wasn't the perfect year by any means, in more ways than one, it's like, there was still so much I took away from it in a positive light. I mean, it's why you and me, it's like, we can have this conversation and smile about it nowadays.
And it's funny too, you know, not to beat a dead horse, so to speak. Let's talk about production as well. Let's call it what it is. With the time you got, who produced more than you, right? So we're at one point we're shooting 62% from the 3-point line, right? At one point, right? And then you kind of got
it's like that. It's like the glitch in 2K where every time you shoot a corner three, it goes in no matter what.
Yeah, and I can go back further, double dribble.
Double dribble, yeah. I was about to say that, double dribble.
Yeah, he went to the corner, it was good every single time.
Every single time.
But no, man, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that experience was a good one and that you took something from it. And just so you know, I still to this day, you know, appreciate you, you know, being an adult about it, being mature about it, and recognizing, you know, this is still an opportunity. And, you know, the school is what it is too. We were able to also put you other places where you're able to get a sweat and do things.
Totally.
It's like, I don't think other schools would have opened that door or even been that receptive to the idea of giving, you know, certain kids a chance. And I thought it was good, man. That was good for me to see you have that success.
Oh yeah, man. You know, it's like just the fact that I got to be on the team, which to me was better than I thought it was going to be beforehand. Like, that to me, honestly, was the win in itself, because to me, it's not even about, you know, actually getting to play. It's just about being a part of this team and, you know, getting to learn about other people and connect with them. Because that's the thing about what made basketball so valuable to me. It's not even just the physical aspect and the fun you have playing the game. It's the fact that you get to connect with all these other people who, you know, are from these different backgrounds and different skill levels, and just find ways to, you know, make connections and, you know, learn about each other and, you know, honestly, hopefully stay in touch with each other for a really long time, you know?
Yeah, that's the beauty of sport.
Yeah, you know, and that's why I like team sports too. Like, you know, I did cross country my freshman year, and that was fun and all, and it is technically a team sport, but like compared to basketball, the team aspect, it's a lot harder to find. And it was good. Like I'll say that to this day, basketball is hard, but cross country is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Hardest thing, hands down.
Versus you, bro. It really is you versus you sometimes. That's a mental thing. It's tough.
I mean, like you like, it doesn't matter how physically talented you are. It is about how hard you are willing to push yourself in cross country. It is insane.
Even your practice is that way. It's a mental grind.
I mean, it's what made me so prepared for your practices, man, honestly. Like, we had some of our guys who were just like, God, do we have to keep going? I was like, hey, this is a cakewalk, man. This is a cakewalk. You know, no offense to you. You pushed me, no doubt. But it's like, I have faced a lot of tough challenges in my life that prepare me for the ones ahead. So I guess I'll elaborate a little more on, you know, we talked about you as a player and a little bit of you as a coach. And it's funny because I remember coming into when you came to coach me, you had sworn that you would never coach again. You literally were like, you swore you would never coach again. So the fact that I
was done.
The fact that you still came means something. And I guess I would ask, you know, what made you make a decision like that? And like, what has coaching specifically done for you, specifically compared to being a player too? And also perhaps a referee too, because I know you did that for a while.
Yeah. I think I guess the answer for that is I can take the global approach, if you will. I love the game. flat out. You know what I mean? Like love. It doesn't love you back sometimes. It feels like it cheats on you. It feels like it doesn't give you a good chance. It feels like it doesn't feed you. Sometimes it hurts your body and it hurts your feelings, and you still keep coming back, and that is the beauty of basketball and a relationship with it, right? But for me, I always felt that if I can't give something back to this thing that taught me everything, then I'm just a coward. I'm a coward and I'm a traitor, at the end of the day. So, you mentioned the referee part. Obviously, as a player, you put the time in. Guys who play at a high level generally spend a lot of their time making decisions to opt for the gym, to go play, as opposed to going to do whatever else that people do, when they're not playing and practicing, shooting, dribbling, traveling to go do those things as well. And then, by luck has it that I got into the refereeing and officiating game. It was just a matter of wanting some extra money, still being in shape and being able to, know the game at a decent level. I should be able to do this. But what that gave me is another level of understanding and respect for the game. So, I will give a referee a hard time at times, but I do my best and I go out of my way to not say a word to them because I recognize what they go through. So when they get an opinion or a perspective that's more aggressive, or that I'm fighting for my team, it's because I know the game, I've been in their perspective, and I've seen it. So for me, I tell other coaches, you should shut your mouth if you haven't been in their shoes. I have. So I'm going to run my mouth when it's necessary to protect my team or to make a comment here or there to push you to be your best as well, Mr. Referee, Miss Referee. But being a referee gave me a different perspective. So playing, then I was a trainer as well. Like most coaches, you're doing some side training if you live in Los Angeles, because that is the hub of private training. So I come in as a trainer as well. So playing, officiating, being a trainer, and then coaching, and then also becoming a dad. That gives you a completely different perspective of the game, or better yet, a better, well-rounded one. And I always tell people, I think that makes you a more viable option for coaching jobs. If I ever became an athletic director, I kind of want to know more about your life than I want to do about your X's and O's, because X's and O's aren't really that deep. It's really not that deep. But to answer your question more directly, I play it because it allows me to compete still. I've let it go. I've let playing go. I'm not the punch drunk boxer. I'm getting in the ring one more time, and I'm still the champ till I ain't the champ no more. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. When it's over, it's over, and it's time to move on. And I did that, but I wanted to give back to the game, and coaching was one of them. I don't think that a lot of coaches that are coaching should be coaches. I think some coaches should be referees. I think some officials should be coaches. I think some people should be at the scorer's table. I think some people are better suited to be trainers, really. And I think there's some people who should be in the front office making some decisions because mathematically they get it and they understand people and putting together this puzzle. And some people should be owners and different, whatever, organizers within the game, but everyone seems to run to certain things. For me, coaching allows me to compete. One, as I said, I like the idea of matching wits, with another coach, with all things being equal, and it's rarely equal. It's rarely equal that you have to get to the playoffs in different places where the rosters are kind of similar and things are level, and not being blown out by 20 or 15, or you got a 6'6" guys going to college and I've got 10 5'5" guys and our gym is trash and you've got all the, like, it's very rare that things are equal. But when they're equal and you're matching wits, it's a beautiful thing to watch. Who cares who wins? If you're a good fan and you have a good, feel for the game, it's just a beautiful thing to watch. That timeout being called, he puts that zone on, and then she puts on that answer to the zone, and that person subs that kid out who's in foul trouble, and then you match that by starting to attack that weakness. You recognize that a player has an inefficient, dribbling style or can't go one way or the other, so you match that and you attack that, and it's a beautiful thing, man. It's chess. It's like playing chess, And not just that, being able to find, people like yourself who you can sow into. It may sound cliche, it may sound, corny, if you will, but I'm a people person. I think I'm really good. I think my true talent is not basketball or X's and O's or training or organization or the ability to be political, but also the ability to be real grindy nose. You know what I mean? I think it's people, and I always think about that. Like, what is that person feeling? You would be hard pressed to find coaches that after a game, after celebrating or relenting, to say, hey, 3 guys right here, your name, your name, your name. We still love you. We know you didn't play. We did not get up this morning saying, what can I do to make sure you don't play tonight? Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here. We still love you. Keep showing up. I think that's important too. So those type of things I like to impress upon kids. Practices, and having, that type of building a culture within the structure of the school setting, and watching kids go from this to that, watching some kids who might go from that to this because of an injury or a change in whatever it is, and being able to keep them afloat and to love on them properly, to know that, the arena that we compete in is just that. It's an arena to compete, but it ain't life. But the process is everything. It's so applicable to life. Showing up on time, understanding your role, accepting criticism, knowing when to be accountable, how to be accountable, how to communicate with your teammates, how to compete with people that you may not like in the moment or even love in the moment. Those things are why basketball, any sport is why my kids will play as long as they can play. My daughter might be a dancer or whatever, but I want to get her into some more sports as well, because she's got the framework for it. But my son, he will play everything for those reasons and those reasons alone. Anything extra, you can make a jump shot, you're a really good ball handler, you can hit a ball real well, you can throw it real far, or you can kick it real hard. Listen, I don't care. There's so many things you can get, especially from other adults, especially as a parent. I may have said something to you, Keys, that your parents may not have been able to say, or you may not have accepted because you have blah, 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 blah. And those things right there, I try my best not to lose sight of those things. That's why I coach.
Hey, man, all of that makes a lot of sense. And I'll say this too. My mom, like, when she saw your son racking it up in the arcade game, she was like, man, that kid is good. She's like, really good. And she doesn't say that often to many people. So your son left an impression on her.
He is aggressive. He is, he's a lot of things, and he will go get it. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Made her proud. I'll say that. And, you talk about, it's like, I just want to turn back to the referee coaching, people aspect and acknowledge you were right when you say you don't get often. But I will say this. I just want to say this because I'll never forget this. Like, whenever before we play a game, you always go up to the ref and say, like, I was a referee. I understand what you're going through, man. And then you get into the nitty gritty. And in fairness to you, you only lost your temper. I can't remember. You only lost your temper once on a referee. Once. There was only one time that happened where we had to call you down. You got a technical foul, whatever. It's like you were pretty.
It is manipulation. Don't get me wrong, but I just think the reception that I get from a lot of the referees is incredible, Keegan. There are a lot of referees that say stuff like, man, I appreciate you focusing on your team. I appreciate your style. Mm-hmm. I like what you're doing. Just showing empathy for their position. It's an imperfect science. You know what I mean? It's an imperfect science. There's people out there with whistles who are getting $1 or $2 to do the job. But the game is fast, and kids are either good or they aren't. There's political situations. There's certain gyms that are just more aggressive, and sometimes you miss the call. But if you think about it, in a good game, missed calls, whatever, it should all still equal out.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know me. You heard me say it 1,000 times. We lose by 20. 15, 20, That ain't got nothing to do with the referee.
Mm-mm.
Absolutely nothing to do with the referee.
Mm-mm. No. And I'll tell you, this is the weirdest irony ever, because I happened to find this last night. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. Oh my God, I think it's called Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Old movie, 70s movie. But in that movie, there's a cross animation live action scene where these cartoon animals are about to play a game of soccer, and they get this real guy to be the referee, and he thinks he's just signing up for a regular soccer game, and then it just develops into full chaos when he realized the extent of what these animals consider soccer to be. So it's like to disrespect a referee.
It's tough out there.
Yeah,
it's tough out there. And I think the referee, once again, is good with people.
Yeah, no, totally, man. I mean, I for me at least, like, I thought it was okay with refs, but truth be told, like there would be points where I would like not full lose my temper, but like come really close, and like they would have to say something to me like, "Don't make me give you a tech, man."
Right,
like,
right.
And it wasn't because I was mad at them. It was just like I was just like,
think about it though. I mean, really, if you really think about it outside of the box, what are you truly looking at when you look at an official? In a game, there are two entities coming together to compete. Each of them have been training and running plays and practicing shooting. They've got their own cultures and they are preparing for each other. But governing that game are these entities that have not been in the rooms, haven't been in the gyms. And when all things go wrong, the mind doesn't allow, wait, hold on, it's me versus them or us versus them. That thing or that other entity is now influencing what I believe to be our opportunity to win and be successful. When the truth is, a lot of times, if you look at the game of basketball, or every time you look at it, there will be missed free throws. There will be missed layups. There will be times where offense is not run with an opportunity to run. There are tons of times where the ball is not going where it's supposed to go. And if you look at it in totality, it's happening on both sides. So it always kind of equals out. There are times where officials blow it. Mm-hmm. But I bet you there's more times where the game equals itself out with the imperfection of it than there are with officials being the root reason of the game going this way or that way. And people
totally, man.
People really struggle with that.
Yeah, no, totally, man. Like, I've definitely learned to look at it more that way, where it's like when a ref makes a bad call, I'm like, okay, give them a chance to make it up. And they usually do. And it's just like, okay, there's the makeup call. And like, I've gotten to a point where when I watch basketball, it's like, I'll keep a chart in my mind of like how many times the ref might have screwed up a call for one team versus the other, It's like, yeah. And in fairness to any ref, at least in the NBA, I will always have a positive light, because I'll tell a quick story here of when I was probably like 10, and me and my dad, we have season tickets to Clippers, and they're like 6 rows back at the court. But at one game, totally random, this guy who was sitting courtside, he decided to leave the game early, and he just came up to us and was like, "Hey, do you want my tickets?" And we were like, "Sure, okay." So we got to sit pretty much the entire fourth quarter courtside, like right there. And literally out of nowhere during a timeout, one of the refs comes over to me and he hands me the basketball and he's like, "Here, can you hold this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it was the most bizarre and one of my favorite moments of watching basketball, because it's just like, I had no clue that a ref could or would do that. And
right.
It was just
perspective, right? A different light. I've seen him in a different light.
Yeah. I mean, before that, I was all about like tormenting Joey Crawford whenever he came out to ref Clipper games, So
it takes a lot of gall to be Joey Crawford when Joey Crawford was Joey Crawford.
Yeah, I've seen some of those clips now on YouTube, and it's a little bizarre what goes on, but is what it is. And I'll also go back a little bit on the coaching part that you elaborate on. It's particularly the part where you said, like, even when guys don't play, you still acknowledge them afterwards. And for me, as someone who did not play in a lot of games, that was very important, because, again, it's like, as someone who doesn't play, you feel like, well, why am I coming? And it's like the fact that at the very least, when all is said and done, even if you were just cheering from the bench the whole time, it's like to be acknowledged for your presence, that goes a very long way mentally into knowing that, okay, at least I wasn't ignored. I may not have gotten to participate the way I wanted to, but I was not ignored for my presence. So,
yeah. Well, I'm a big softie. I mean, I know we're going to move forward with something else, but I'm a big softie. As I age, I cry a lot. And because I see the beauty in a lot of things. I see the God in a lot of things, right? More so than when I was younger. And I don't tell the story often, but when I do, it does kind of tear me up a little bit. And I told your mom, and I kind of teared up telling your mom. But when she stopped me at the gate, and it might have been early in preseason, or maybe going into it might have been October-ish, maybe, still early. And she said, Keegan came home and he said something to me that I never heard him say about any coach that he had been with before. And she said, he sees me. And man, that tore me up. That broke me down, because people want to be seen. And I don't mean necessarily social media. I want to be important, special, celebrated. People at their core want to be acknowledged. And when she told me that you had, relayed that to her, which means that you had ingested what I was putting out, it let me know that I am articulating well enough to touch the life of at least one person. And as time goes on, I'm starting to get in contact with more Keegans and the people that I've worked with in the past 5-10 years since I moved to California, and to see what they've done and hear some of the things that they've said that I totally forgot that I've done only validates the whole point of what I'm doing, or better yet, validates my entire existence. I mean, we need money to pay bills and to take your wife out and to, look nice, buy a pair of Air Jordans from time to time and pay your car, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not touching the lives of people, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
So
no, man. And
that messed me up when your mom told me that. Like, he sees. But as a man, it also, the juxtaposition of emotions was, if I see him, well, gosh darn it, who didn't see him? When did he feel like he wasn't being seen? And that messed with me a little bit as well. But, when you said that, yeah, I'm a big soft, but that's the whole point of what we do.
Yeah, no, I look, truth be told, I don't remember saying that to her. And obviously I don't remember her saying it to you, but I'm glad to know that she did say that and that it touched you in the way it did, because, listen, I'm a guy who, like, more than I'm someone who loves to exude positivity way more than negativity, even if I have to shape it in a way that might be, you stretch the truth, it's like you find a way. It's like I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. And it's funny you mentioned like crying and like the juxtaposition of that and all, because I remember mid-season when we had that tournament down in Carlsbad, championship game, I didn't play a minute, and that wasn't what upset me, but the fact that we lost in the way that we lost, especially to the team that we lost to, because I hated them. I was just, it struck a nerve in me that sucked. And I just, I broke down afterwards, and you acknowledged it too. You're like, Keegan's crying. He didn't even play a minute, which again was not why I was upset, but I was like, it struck a nerve. But I'll also remember this too, because you pointed out, you let me have my feelings. You didn't knock them down at all, but you pointed out that the guy who you were most proud of was the one who, when it was all said and done, was just clapping for the other team, just like that. And I just remember listening to that in the middle of all my tears, and I was like, that's really interesting. And what I'll say about that too, that is interesting for me at least, is, I took that to heart in the sense, in our last game of the season, playoff game against our rival, St. Monica, which we lost in another heartbreaker. That time, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I don't care. I'll just say it for myself. Like, that time I didn't shed a tear, not at least in the locker room. And I remember there were guys who had not cried a day in the season who were just bawling their eyes. One of them wouldn't even talk to anyone. He was just,
I think he's still in that locker room. He might still be in that locker room crying.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I remember that. And I remember JJ, he wouldn't talk to anyone. He was, yeah,
Yeah,
there were some guys in there who reacted understandably. I'm not knocking them down. I'm, you know, acknowledging their feelings. It's like, but they were reacting in ways they had never reacted before in the season. I was like, you know what, Keegan, you've had your opportunity to cry. It's their time now, and you're going to be there to support them for it.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's maturity right there.
Yeah, just learn and grow, man. And I will admit, I did, once I got home, I did cry for a few minutes in my pillow after that. but I was there for the guys. you know.
Yeah,
And I guess we'll talk about, the emotional side of this podcast in a minute, but really quickly, I just want to talk a little bit about aside from coaching and playing and all that stuff, you also do Breakthrough Sports, which is like a practice training program for multiple sports, not just basketball. And I guess, talk about that a little and how it helps people, or namely kids such as me or such as any normal kid, be able to experience sports for what they are in terms of both the physical aspect and the mental aspect.
yeah, physical and mental. I mean, it's really simple in thought. The business model of youth sports, specifically AAU and travel, has dominated the landscape for a while now. Generally speaking, this, you get a couple of kids, maybe 10 or 11, and they're usually the best kids at the YMCA or wherever you find them, and however they're put together. And then you stretch it to 2 teams and stretch it to 3 teams. And inside of that, there are practices and fees and trainings that come along with that. And they travel and they play, and then they just repeat that. And then you've got the Parks and Rec idea, which is to provide a service, for the entire city in some capacity. And at the end of the day, just get it done. You're not going to get the best coaches all the time. It'd be a lot of dads out there volunteering and a lot of 17-year-old, 16-year-old referees that don't know the game, but we offered it, right? We're right in the middle of that, where we recognize that we may not be operating in the most competitive space, which might turn some people away. We also recognize that because we operate in a fundamental sense where we want to teach the game, that we're going to garner a certain type of child, a certain type of athlete, a certain type of family. And good enough, it works for us is that there are more of those families out there than there are the kids that are 6'7", 6'8", and will be taken away from, the average, rec league to go do some special things, as they should. I don't knock that either, but we're right there in the middle. And with our programming, leagues, academies, camps, we're able to connect the dots. We're able to educate one. And you may have heard me say it, but it's one of my things, and I coined it, repetition leads to habit, leads to reflex is one of them. But my favorite is competence breeds confidence. And my illustration of that is the 7-year-old kid who finally makes a team at his local rec or league or YMCA league. They get their uniforms and it's bright and it smells brand new, and they can't sleep because they're so excited about Saturday morning, and they beg for the sneakers that they've asked for a long time, and grandma buys the sneakers, and then they show up and someone has the Gatorade and the orange slices, and then the referees show up and the scoreboard lights up, and then you hop out there with your team and your coach is yelling, and the one kid who can dribble and shoot never passes the ball to anyone else, and then you got the parents screaming, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it. And a bulk of the kids have absolutely no idea what is going on. And what that does is that can hammer away, boom, at their confidence, boom, at their perspective, boom, at their will, right? And these kids at, 9, 10, 11, 12, from what studies are showing, are walking away from sport. My only question is, where are they walking to? Where are they going? So with Breakthrough Sports, we're able to provide that landscape, for the kids who aren't that good or could be good later, or just need to be introduced to the game, or decided to like the game a little later, or parents are just saying, you're going. And what that does, I believe, it's an intrinsic thing. You know, competence breeds confidence. So you have a coach now taking the time to teach you how to play the sport. And you also giving you a foundation, you know, physical background, some ladders, some cones, some agility work, some speed work, you know, tons of drills and skills, and putting you around kids who are equally as skilled as you are, as opposed to throwing you in the, you know, the lion's den and say, figure it out. And then we organize it, and we have quality coaches who know their stuff, or at least are going to come into their own soon, but they're there, you know, and they're consistent, and they're offering good feedback and positivity. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And that's the whole point of what we do. You know, it's the point of what we do at its core. You know, we do have 3-on-3 leagues. We do have some, you know, volleyball leagues and soccer leagues that allow families to compete, because eventually when they fall in love with you, they want more. I don't want it from somebody else. I want it from you, you know, and it makes sense. It makes sense. And I think that's where we are. We've got some imperfections, you know what I mean? It's business, and you learn the business as you go. But I think what we are at our core really means a lot to a lot of people.
No, man, it's so funny you talk about the model of how, like, you know, there's more to gain from the people who won't play pro to the ones who will, because literally, no joke, like, I've gone to college for a year now at Texas. I'm on track to minor in sport management, probably going to major. We'll see. But I took an intro to sport management class last semester. And literally, like, one of the first things my professor taught me was, like, there is much more like profit potential in the market of guys who are never going to play pro than those who are. It's just that the way it is. It's like, and it's up to us to harness that market, you know, to, you know, our benefit. And it's like, you're a perfect example.
For people to consider themselves business oriented, or businessmen or businesswomen, and literally make it their business to focus on the 1%. Don't get me wrong, they need to be serviced. But imagine trying to build a business and compete with other people building businesses and ideas on the 1%. That just doesn't make sense to me. I have a family, I have bills. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I believe that I do have a gift. I believe I have talents that I've worked on, but it doesn't make sense to go. I think that could be a part of it. I think servicing the 1% or the 2%, or kids who are better and want to compete at a high level, I think there's a market for that within the confines of what we do. But I don't think I will ever sell out of what I think I'm good at. And I think what makes me different and sets me apart is that I can cater to a greater amount of people through teaching and education, and, you know, that part, than you can by just working on, you know, that 1%. And I'm going to stick by that forever. You know, even if breakthrough sports wasn't a thing for me, I would build on that foundation.
I mean, I'll tell you this, like, forget breakthrough sports. You are catering to two types of classes in Pacifica Christian Basketball High School. It's like you're catering to a guy like me who's never going to play past high school, compared to a guy like JJ, who's already gotten offers from freaking UNLV and Arizona State. Like, what happens?
In the same gym.
In the same gym, on the same team.
Once again, this is not this, but this is what my wife said is your gift. There's a movie, you and I talk movies a lot. There's a movie, Pretty Boy Bradley Cooper.
Okay.
And I think it was on Netflix or Max or one of the streaming services. And he is a chef attempting to get his second Michelin star, which is basically trying to get to the moon twice.
Right.
Attempting the impossible.
Yep.
And they paint this picture of him being just a nasty, filthy individual, because to operate at that high level, generally speaking, people are probably nasty or considered certain words that we won't use here, right?
Of course not.
The movie then gives you a quick glimpse into his cooking, because they don't show you him cooking for a while, or someone ingesting his cooking.
Right.
So these people sit down. I'm not really certain of the name of these tasters or people who make decisions on what the best food is, whatever. They're there to taste the food.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows the woman putting the food, the fork to her mouth, and her eyes roll back. And you recognize he is gifted, talented at what he does, which also kind of makes you kind of forgive his inability to take care or be, to treat people correctly, right? It kind of lets you, it's okay. It's okay. And in that moment, I pressed pause and I said, babe, man, I don't want to be like that to people. That's not who I am. But I sure would love to be that good at something. And I turned my head because I wasn't looking for feedback. It was just, a comment that I made to my wife.
Right.
And she looks at me and she says, wait, you are good at something like that. What are you talking about? She said, you, my friend, can actually teach a 3-year-old to play a sport. And you, my friend, can also teach someone who's 23 how to play a sport. I was like, she's right.
Wife's always right.
Wife is always right. And what she was saying in so many words is that your gift isn't at being blah, blah, blah. Your gift is with knowing exactly how to cater to multiple types of people and kids in different areas, which a lot of coaches just won't do. And, I joke with Shaw all the time, like, look, Shaw, at some point our relationship will end, but good luck finding someone who could deal with this school, these kids, and try to compete and put up with some of the stuff. And he laughs because we both know that it's a special place. And, you got to know how to deal with a 6'7", and you got to know how to deal with a kid who's 5'6", you know what I mean? Whose parents believe that he should be playing, you know what I mean? In the same gym.
Right.
Small gym at that.
Yes, it was very small gym.
So,
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this, like, just speaking from my perspective, I think last season you had it off easy with us, because at least for guys like me and Leo, who we just like rolled our eyes and we were like, sure, whatever, it's like, do what you want.
Leo, I know he's a part of the podcast at this point.
Okay.
Leo to me is another guy that to the day I die will be one of the most, he's a special human. There are humans out there that are just flat out different.
Mm-hmm.
Leo's a different type of human. And I knew that. Remember when we did the everyone got a Zoom call and you had your role description, what was expected of you preseason. After about 5 or 6 calls, hold on, coach, before you go, we got to find a spot for Leo. I'm like, what is this kid? Like, why are they saying that? Is he paying these kids?
Right.
And he's a senior. And spot-wise, as far as like space goes, the only place that Leo had to go was on a frosh. That's the only place. And believe it or not, we offered him that. And you know what Leo said? Cool. Blew my head off. Obviously, he did not play frosh.
No, he did not. Thank God.
Being like the quintessential guy. Leo, you got to shoot that ball, man. I can't shoot. So I passed it. And it's just like, that's who he is.
Yeah.
He knows his truth. He's aligned with himself. He's comfortable with himself. He's not so obstructed by his insecurities that he can move about a way in a maturation that just blew my mind. So I'm glad you said that name, but that's just where it is, man. Pacifica Christian, if you coach basketball there, God bless you.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset. If you're coming in with this bang, 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 this is what it is, it's not going to work for you.
No, it's not going to work. Yeah. And it's so funny with Leo because, you mentioned the story of how it's like he doesn't shoot. Like, I don't see that in a lot of guys. And I was just like, wow, you got some guts not to shoot the ball, man. Good for you.
It was like, that's not what I do.
Yeah. And lucky for him, he had another way to score. He had his Leo cut.
The Leo cut. We still call it that.
Yeah, we still call it that.
Leo cut.
Yeah, no.
That was when he went back, when he made that cut in Carlsbad.
Right.
And finally got one for a layup. That bench exploded. Isn't that something though? The energy, the bench exploded. When you knock down 2 threes in a row in the corner, the bench exploded. It was very rare. In the game, you can't really grasp what's happening. You hear it. I know you do. But when you guys would get shots or do something for the team, they would go nuts. We would go nuts. The coaches would go. We're like, this is what it's about.
No, totally, man. Like I remember that, and honestly, for me, and probably for Leo too, knowing him, it's like when we saw the bench explode, we were like, "Thank you, guys. Let's move on."
Right.
I mean, literally, I remember it's like one time I made, like I think it was in the third tournament game. I don't know. It was like my third three in a row, like after 3 games or whatever. And I remember it was after Stewart executed a perfectly run offensive possession as a point guard, which he's normally not. He just executed the offense perfectly to get me a wide open shot at the end of the shot clock, which I took. And I thought it was short, but I knocked it down and I just did a total MJ shrug. Like I did not think that was going in. And at the same time, I was like, you know what? I give all the credit to Stewart in the world for that shot because he ran the offense to perfection and, just crazy. And going to, back to Leo, I actually did not I know that story now, but I did not know that story until you told it at the awards ceremony, when you gave him the coach's award. And to sound a little bit selfish, like I thought I was going to get the award and I was like, please give me that award. But when I heard you tell that story, I was like, wow, that's bold of him.
He didn't bat an eye. Sure. Cool.
Yeah, no, all my respect in the world goes out to that kid. You made the right choice in that award. Let me be clear. You made the right choice. He deserved it.
Yeah. He had some good times.
Yeah. All right. Now, I guess now would be a good time to shift from sports to the spectrum. And I'll start off by asking a question I ask everyone to kick this off, because I think it's a good way to start the conversation. I'll ask, when you hear the term mental health, what pops into your head?
Man, it used to be something completely different. I'm an 80s baby. So as I tell my wife, we are all subjected to the mediums that were in our face. For us, it was the television, you know what I mean? AKA TV, and the shows that were there, and anything that required mental health was considered to be crazy, cuckoo. You're, going to get your head shrunk. You had to go to a therapist, a psychiatrist. And how did they paint the picture? Person laying on couch, other person sitting upright with pen and pad, writing something and asking one question: tell me about your childhood. That's what we thought mental health was. Now, as of recently, as I've been in therapy myself, when you're 43 years old as a Black man in America and you survive to tell the story, it will behoove anybody who watches this, go get some therapy. All right. You know what I mean? Even if it's only a few sessions to get yourself back to equilibrium, go. There's always something behind the something, right? But now when I think of mental health, I think of empathy for people on this particular earth, which is extremely hard place to live right now, right? An extremely hard place to live, and trying to navigate all of it: bills, family, children, education, sport, whatever. And the expectations of the world, and all of us being gifted something different and coming from different places and having other things. It makes me believe that mental health is something that needs to be in the forefront of everyone's mind with every decision you make all the time. Once again, people, loving on people. I tell my daughter all the time, when your face shrugs up for any reason, and that's not just her, anyone, your face shrugs up, you see something, you shoot a little blurb out about what you believe, or I can't believe that how are they, or even someone who does you wrong. We're all people and we all emote. But at the end of the day, that person is manifesting something that happened to them. They're manifesting something that made them the way they are. They're manifesting, their inabilities or their inefficiencies. They're manifesting their ignorance. They're manifesting the small world or place that they grew up in. They're manifesting a lie that was told to them over and over again. So the truth is, all we are is a bunch of people walking around manifesting things, good, bad, and indifferent. And mental health is at the epicenter of these things.
Yeah, no, man, totally agree with you there. And, you talk about like people going to therapy, like I myself, believe it or not, I've not gone to that many rounds of official therapy, where you go and talk to someone. But what's interesting is I actually consider myself to have gone to a ton of therapy, in the sense that whenever I go to basketball, whether to practice, to play, whatever, that to me is the form of therapy, specifically in the sense it gives me an outlet to, let out my emotions in whatever way necessary. And usually I try to keep them mostly positive, but you know me, that's not always true. And just kind of like play my way through, how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking, and just kind of like let that formulate itself into something I can do as a fun way to, express myself and interact with others at the same time, because that's also my like most limiting factor. It's like finding ways to interact with other people, that's hard, but
Yeah.
finding something you can connect with, especially in a physical aspect, that's really important for me, and I think also it's like, we talked about, how like I've had experiences in the past where, you tell me it's personal, it's not business. Well, I've had experiences where it has been personal. And so it's like, when you tell me that, I'm like, I want to believe you, man. But it's like, I've had that happen to me before. But at the same time, your persistence in like finding ways to prove that it's not personal, because you acknowledge me, you give me opportunities to, excuse me. Sorry. You give me opportunities to prove myself and, just be a part of this team. It's like that to me is where that wall starts to break down, to the point where like I can be openly honest and be happy where I am too, even if maybe it's not what most people would consider a good place to be,
Right. That's huge. That's really huge, man. That's once again perspective, and there's got to be a process to getting there. And I think it's important that we acknowledge those things too. When I say us, I mean coaches, people in position of authority and leadership, especially regarding youth. You got to be receptive to the idea of the process. One of the things that that we duel with, my daughter is, my daughter's 13. And no matter how we slice it, or how much discipline we talk about, or how many times we pull her card and we put things in place to try to help her be successful, and to call, at the end of the day, she's 13, and we have to yield to the fact that there's a process in place, and there's nothing we can do to stop that process from happening. It's got to happen, because we've all been there, right? Now, if we can apply that same idea towards other people, it sounds very esoteric, maybe, but maybe the world's a better place. Maybe it's a better idea, just to grant grace, acknowledging that people are in the middle of their process. And I think it really sucks when I hear that coaches, immature coaches who haven't, back to my original point, my perspective of the game as a player, as a trainer, as a coach, as an official, and as a dad. It gives me a different glimpse at a kid when I talk to them. So when something happens and I respond to them, I'm responding to them with all of those things coming out of my mouth, as opposed to, this is the career I want, this is what I want to do, and this is what I believe needs to be done based on what I know. And I think that's just a better way to go about it. So much damage being done in the world of coaching and leadership overall. There's some damage. There's true damage. Kids are walking away from sport at 10, 11, 12 years old and splitting to go do what with their 5, 6, 7 hours of additional time? What are they doing? Right?
Yeah.
And if we talk about it, before, like, all those things that we love about the sport, if they're not getting that from there, where the heck are they getting it from? Everybody's not in a band. Everybody doesn't have an after school job.
Right.
Think certain things, they're doing other things, right? And then we turn around and get mad that they're doing these things. Well, provide something that helps them. But great perspective, Keith.
Yeah, no, man. Ironically enough, like going back to college and what I learned, like, kids walking away, it's like something else I learned, it's like it all comes back to you. And, you talk about process at 13 years old. Like, I'm 19. I'm still going through that process now, man. Like, me and my parents are still butting heads about like how much we should let that process play out,
I'm 43. I'm 43 and I'm still in my process.
Yeah. It's like, the process, you let the process play out, man. It always plays, what for better or for worse, man. So I'm totally with you there. And I guess I would ask now, we talk about, as, you talk about as coach and, you got to learn more. It's like, I'll ask you, and you can use me as an example, but I'd also ask, like, if you've had experience with anyone else too, how often do you come across people who you believed had some type of mental or emotional condition? In this case, you knew about me. But did any of them stick out to you or make an impression? If so, why? And in your interactions with these people, did you ever make any adjustments to how you interacted with them?
You have to. There were others. Okay, we're here. We're here.
We're here. We got time. We got time.
On that specific team that you were on your senior year, there were a plethora of things that I had to negotiate. And when I say things, I mean disabilities, I mean conditions, I mean all of those things on that same bench during a game of competition when you're trying to compete with another coach and his brain and his roster and their athleticism and their schemes and what they're trying to stop you from doing. It's like being a boxer. You know what I mean? As they always say, if you don't answer the phone, you go out here too wide, it's night. You wake up the next day, what happened? And you have all of these things happening. You know what I mean? You have all of these things happening while you're trying to do this. And it was easily the most challenging year I had from that perspective. It required an enormous amount of grace, an enormous amount of empathy, an enormous amount of introspection, and an enormous amount of patience. So I'm going to use that team as the template of all things that could happen outside of basketball at the same time. And yes, to answer your question more in a more, direct way, you have to go about it in a way that suggests that you care, because you're going to get it wrong sometimes. And you have to do your best to learn more about each individual situation, which also in my situation presents another issue. There are HIPAA laws in education. There are some things that just won't be shared with the coach. I can't stand any of it. In our situation, how can we properly, how can we adequately, how can we give our best if we don't have information or access to? We just kind of have to wait and see if somebody offers, in your mom's case. Or because I live in a house with a SPED coordinator, and because I live in a house with someone who's worked with kids her entire life as well, some things I'm just privy to. And I'm grateful that I, being a kid who started coaching 13 years old at a basketball camp, I've been to every youth, any type of programming you could think of regarding youth, I've been there. And now, in retrospect, I think about some of the kids that gave us a hard time, that are difficult, knuckleheads, bad kids. The truth is, there were some other things. Some mental health, some disability, some emotional things. There was stuff there, but you just had to move about it the best way you could.
I mean, it's like, my dad was a coach, too, with me for a while. And I'll never forget, like, one of the things, just to draw an analogy here, it's like one of the things he hated was when guys didn't tell him if they were injured or sick or whatever, because he's like, if I don't know you're injured, and I see you play, I'm going to judge you based on the idea that you're not injured. Like, because that's all the information I have to work with. So if you don't tell me you're injured and that's why you play bad, that's on you.
It's on you.
It's
I'll
like,
I'll take it even one step further. And I'm grateful once again to be a dad and a person who owns a youth sports company and lives in a house with a wife who works with children. Or, sometimes I could even go the next mile and say, he is hurt, or he's just not having a good day, or it's not, I'm going to make the call for him. That knee's not right. There are no college scouts in this 2-hour practice right now. You're not going to the NBA in the next 2 hours. Let's go and sit this one out. Or I did hear a little bit about that teacher and that additional work that you got to get done. You're here at practice already. You didn't skip. I'll tell you what you do. Go upstairs, find a desk, get that done. That makes more sense today. For today, that makes more sense. Or, like this team that we had this year, there were so many kids who were dealing with families that were splitting. That's a thing.
I remember one of them.
Real thing. That's a thing. But they don't have a disability. They don't have an IEP. They've got money in their pocket. No. The foundation and the core the basic unit of all matter is the family. If that's splitting, some could argue that that's probably a little more than, So once again, if I were an athletic director or a leader of some capacity, overseeing people that are going to come in and look after kids and provide something for kids, you want to find the most complete human you can find, which is impossible, but you want to find the most complete human you can find, because this mental health thing is no joke. This no joke. This stuff happening is no one is steering clear of the fray, especially post-COVID. Everything has been magnified.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, and I'll just say, and I won't use this guy's name because I'm gonna say something that I just don't want him to get the wrong response for, because he knows who he is and all. But like you mentioned, like there are situations where people are splitting up. We had that last season with the guy, and not only that, like I talked with him, and so did my mom with his mom and all that stuff. We have reason to believe he has something too, and it's just like, when you top all that stuff on with this kind of situation, it's like you have to show respect and just understand that what they're going through, it's not easy. And like, obviously you can't stop it from happening, but if you can find ways to work around it, to give them an environment where they can succeed however they may need to, like that is just really important. And it's honestly part of the reason why, like, and I'll tell you, it's a double-edged sword in the sense, I wish more people would talk about what they're going through so that more people can help them. But at the same time, I wish the environment they could trust the environment would be more welcoming so that they wouldn't be afraid of taking that jump. It's like,
right.
That's the risk factor,
The onus is on the leadership to build it into the curriculum and the space, to build it into the structure, so those things can be provided the best that they can. Everyone is not a trained therapist, but there is something to be said about having a space conducive and healthy enough for no matter how you slice it. High school is children, still children. They're still developing, processing. Even I say that even when it comes to like the NBA and like Ja Morant, he's 23. He's a baby. He's nowhere near what some would call a seasoned adult, right?
He's not technically a full adult,
right? Physiologically speaking, right? I think the male brain stops at what, 26 or something?
Yeah, it's 26. Like his brain hasn't even grown out fully yet. Like
what are we talking about? Like this guy's going to make some bad decisions, and the ones that make good decisions, they should be applauded because they're ahead of the game, and there's some structure there that helps them, having more success. So. It's a lot to it, man. It's a lot to it. And I believe that there needs to be more spaces, like I said, where you can build in conducive environment, something for that, whether that's a day or a couple of hours, or, just, recognizing when someone's going through something, man, give them a day off. What's wrong with a day off from time to time? What's wrong with that? Or as I don't know if I did that with y'all, but this past year, with attention issues with some of our kids, there was about 2 to 3 minutes every practice. Those 2 to 3 minutes belong to you. Go get your phone, go get a snack, a water break, walk outside, see the sun, walk up the steps. If there's some girls outside, go greet them. Be back in 3 minutes just to clear your head, give you some space, to come back and refresh. Even those 3 minutes, you're talking about 5 months of work, maybe, right? 5 months, you practice 3 to 5 times a week, add those minutes up. It matters. It matters. Go do your thing. Come back. Turn the music on, put your headphones on, TikTok, Instagram, go. Just bye, and then come on back.
No, man, like that honestly hits me in a really sweet, well, not maybe not sweet, but like it really hits me in a very personal spot, because one of my, like, obviously, sports in the classroom, they're separate in a lot of ways, but when you're in the classroom, you can have your own accommodations, like from the state or whatever, if you have a condition like autism or whatever. And one of mine that I had throughout high school was that if I needed to step out for a minute or two just to like clear my head and all, I could do that. And look, man, I hold no grudge against you for not coming up with that, my season, but I'm glad you're doing it now, because let me tell you, like, as someone who actually deals with stuff like this, those 2 minutes, like you said, they can make a huge difference in terms of just breaking out of having your hands tied or just in a spiral. It's like,
your group would have never came back for those 3 minutes. We'd have been searching for your group for the
I would have come back, but nobody else would have.
Your group would have not come back. Straight up and down. I'm glad I didn't come up with it then. I'd have been like, go get him, go find him, go find him.
Oh my God. I mean, I hate to admit it, but you're kind of right.
Think about your roster.
Yeah. No, man.
You got guys out of ran the bagel nosh.
Yeah.
You're not going to pull bagel nosh off in 3 minutes, bro.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would have come back. I can give you my word on that. Pinky promise, whatever. But you are right. Not many others would have come back. Oh my goodness. But still, props to you for doing it now instead of last year.
Right.
Once again, that shows you acknowledge that it has an impact. And the other thing I'll say too is, like, you talk about John Morant, second offense, and you talk about anyone who, like, you give it a try, they don't do it. It's about staying persistent. It's not about do it once, done. No, that's not how it works. Like, again, it's like you talk about it. It's like, you didn't just say, oh, thanks for coming for just one game. You did it pretty much every time. Like, I can't remember when you didn't do it, only except when it was like a good game. Like, I'll never forget the San Gabriel game. That was fun to watch. That was really fun to watch.
Wow. That's the game that I thought we kind of figured it out.
Yeah. We didn't win, but we played like crazy well. Like, that was a game where I was happy to be on the bench because I was having fun watching the guys play their heads out and cheer them on. Like, that was fun.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
you and Dennis were completely out. You were insane that game on the bench.
Yeah, no, we were going wild. But at the same time, like, whenever there were games where like we just had a tough loss or whatever, or, like at AGBU, I remember I twisted my ankle in the game before playing JV. And like, after the game, we were all down because we were so close to beating the best team in our league. And you were like, hey, I know only a couple guys played and they played their heads off, but thank you, Leo. Thank you, all these other guys. Thank you, Keegan, for putting your body on the line in the prior game. It's like,
right.
The fact that you continue to do that, that's what makes real progress. It's not, it takes time. And I guess we're getting close to the end, but here, I guess I'll try to connect sports and the spectrum together and ask, how do sports specifically, and basketball, since you have a lot of experience around that, obviously, how do they help you better understand and or address these mental, emotional, and developmental challenges? And how do they benefit those who have them in ways that other things can't? Like, how can sports help them in that other things can't help them with?
In my position, I could say that it's still education, right? Education, once again, has been clearly defined by our mediums, right? What television says, what social media says, what it looks like. What it looks like in Western society is a classroom, a teacher, roles or circles, it doesn't matter. They do it how they do it. But basketball or sports offers the ability to get up and move. And when you're getting up and you're moving and still in a space where you're learning, it offers so much, because sports minus maybe, what are the ones where you do them by yourself? Tennis, you do by yourself sometimes. Golf, you're by yourself. That's a mental game.
Running, but you're by yourself.
By yourself. But when you're in a sports spectrum like basketball, Keegs is not going to be our ball handler that breaks the press against, a monstrous trapping zone defense that's designed to get you to speed up and turn it over. He may not be the most incredible 94-foot defender. He's going to turn that defender 5 times in the backcourt and take time off the shot clock and make it hard for them to run offense and initiate offense. But with that shot that he locked into, with the time that he gets, he becomes a weapon, right? Which means that I now know how to use you. I now know what practices look like for you. And everyone comes to the table in sport with something to give. Now, whether you have a condition or not, you are now around the brotherhood or the sisterhood or the team environment where everything is accepted, but there's also some structure to it, right? And you're allowed to be more free. Let's call it what it is. We all played the game of basketball because something somewhere at some point excited us. For me, it was Michael Jordan, which led to Allen Iverson and then the rest of the guys, right? And it just allowed me to express myself. That's the art of it, the art and the beauty of that. And I think that it helps when people have conditions or disabilities or whatever it may have you. It helps being a part of a unit that is still conducive for learning, conducive for expression, and also conducive for competing, which means that there's still an end goal. What better place? Other than maybe, a synagogue, church, something of that significant, of that magnitude. What other place can you say these places can come and coexist at the same time and still walk out with smiles on their face?
Totally, man. Just totally. And this reminds me of probably my favorite of all, like your Hodgeisms or whatever you want to call this. I think put it on like my senior basketball, like
I still have it.
Yeah, it's like when playing, you said like when playing basketball, it's simple. You win, or you win. It's
no losses.
There's no losses because, either you're going to win the game and know that you did something right, or you're going to lose the game and you're going to win in the sense you learned what you did wrong and you can improve upon that going forward. It's
and because of that, you win.
It's like
no losses. There's just no losses at all, man.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's probably the best sales pitch for basketball I have ever heard in my life.
Right.
It's just like, and it stuck with me, like, honestly, like, you talk about sitting on the bench and all, it's like, you pitch that to someone, it's like, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to, well, at least for me, I'm going to be the best bench warmer you've ever seen, man. Cause I'm going to win,
Right.
And, it's just like, the fact that, for me, I got to be in an environment where I got to learn, I got to be a part of a group, I got to be free, and I got to win. It's like
traveled a bunch.
That was fun.
Tons of hours talking basketball.
Oh yeah. Tons of hours carpooling with you to the games.
Yeah, man.
Sitting shotgun.
Talking basketball the entire time.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Remember the wow, that might have been Pilly balls.
Oh, are you talking about like when we were talking about like what jobs we would go to?
I gave everyone a business.
Yes, you did.
Yep. Yeah. Everyone in that band got a business opportunity. Like, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this. That was the coolest thing. I remember that. That's the best trip we ever had.
Yeah, and I'll elaborate it because I remember some of the specific details. I remember one kid, I think it was Quinn. You said he was going to be a model, which I actually think he is. He's got the model body. You said Walter was going to be a music director, which he wants to do. And he's good. He's really good. And then for me, you were like, Keegan, you are going to be a broadcaster. You're going to be a play-by-play guy. I'm going to be your color guy, which you were totally right about, by the way. Like, that totally would have worked. And it was so funny because you first
Luca had a shoe company.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But what was funny was before you told me that, you asked me, like, Keegan, what do you want to be? And I was like, oh, I want to analyze data. I want to go into basketball and stuff. And you look back at Walter and you're like, Walter, can I do this? And he was like, sure. And it's like, Keegan, you're out of your mind. This is what you're going to do, And
Yeah, I think you hit me with the political answer. I just
it was something like
management and something or other. I said, Keegs, you know how many shots the Houston Rockets shot in the finals of 1998 or something, 99 or something like that.
Something crazy.
You want to go into sports management, dude? Like, you have the key to your life right here.
I mean, you literally, I remember it came down to like, you asked me what my last name was and I said Flegner, and he was like, no. What's your mom's last name? And I was like, Freddie. And it's like, boom. That's the last name.
You remember that?
I remember that, man.
Yes. What's mom's last name again?
It's Freddie.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's your last name.
Yeah, you were like comparing me to Dick Vitale or something,
Yeah, because now you got more. You know what I mean? Now you got New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. Yeah. You got the whole. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. No, I remember that clean, man. That stuck with me, man. And I it's one of those selfish things I hate to admit, but you did it again, man. You were right. You were right. And while I don't know if that'll be my career, let me tell you, man,
right.
If it comes to fruition, I will always say, thank you, Steve Hodge. You were right once again.
Hodgisms
all the way, man. All right, man. I would just we're down to the very end here. Before I ask my final question, I would just ask, like, are there any other thoughts or suggestions you have that you'd like to share with us?
No. You are, well, yes, I have to do it, you know what I mean? Because it makes sense. Yes, this is your platform. Yes, it's outstanding and awesome. But I just want I want to challenge you to recognize your gift and recognize your talents. Because if you steer too far away from those things, there's people who are affected by you not being where you're supposed to be at the right time. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I believe there's a host of people who need to know your story, who need to know your background, and also need to be subjected and to who you are as a human. I don't think that there are any quote unquote bad humans on this earth, but I think there are some humans that are better than others. And you strike me as one of those humans. So my challenge to you is to get as close as you can to your gifts and your talents, and it will manifest in a greater capacity than you could ever imagine.
Thank you, man. And I'll tell you, I'm doing that right now. Like, again, I'll mention again, I just came back from a conference in Vegas, where I got to be around a bunch of people where it's like, I got to show them what I'm good at and what I want to be good at too. It's like, and share this platform with them at the same time. It's like, I'm just trying to find ways to, make myself happy, make myself productive, and just help other people to see that, so they can see what they want within themselves,
Yeah, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll wrap up with the final question I have for every person I have on the show, which is that although much progress has been made in recent years, there can still be a stigma, obviously, associated with mental, emotional, and developmental challenges. This is true with anything for that matter. But what is the one thing that you want someone listening to this podcast to know about your experiences with these challenges that they should better understand or appreciate?
I was saying it today. I can't make it up. Look at the numbers, look at the data, it's all there. People who quote unquote have these conditions or special needs generally produce a great deal of the art and the beauty that this world consumes at an extremely high level. It will behoove you to roll out the red carpet. It will behoove you to learn more about these things, and it will behoove you to show empathy whenever you come across. And if you have the opportunity to teach, inspire, learn, hug, or be a part of these entities' lives, you should dive in.
That, and I let that sit for a moment because I'm just trying to process exactly like just how big that is. Because I will say, like, it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to actually do something with it, it's like anyone can watch basketball. Anyone can watch basketball. They could just turn it on their TV by chance, even if that wasn't the channel they were trying to put in. But to actually learn and appreciate the game for what it is in all of its aspects, everywhere across the world, like that to me is the wild thing about the world we live in. It's like there is so much that we can just look at, and then there is so much beneath it that we can be like, oh my goodness, that is incredible, and I want to be a part of it.
I think God, like the same way that blind people or people with visual impairment, right, they can hear fantastically. You know what I mean? And not just fantastically, to hear something different. You know what I mean? My wife and I, it's a little off kilter. We personally believe that Kanye is on the spectrum. If you look at it in totality, if you really, really like stare.
I mean, he said it himself. Like he's like, I might be autistic,
right? I think
which is not an excuse for what he said, but nevertheless, it's like
there's something to it, and I think that in so many words, there's special powers. There's special powers, flat out. Special.
I mean,
powers.
People still buy his shoes and love his music, so
special powers on that spectrum. I'm trying to tell you, special powers. It's like you guys are like superheroes, man.
I mean, I don't know how much I want to be compared to Kanye, given some of his past comments, but I will not deny his like musical prowess in the industry. It's like, to me, it just befuddles me that a guy can have that much control, that he thinks he can say stuff like he said and get away with it, even if he can't. It's like,
let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Yeah, no. But I mean, look, I'll give you another example. Once again, pure coincidence. I just stumbled upon this video. There's a guy who's autistic who now has the Guinness World Record for the fastest Rubik's Cube solved. He did it in like 3 seconds. It's like
special powers.
It's like, it befuddles me, the abilities that certain people have that others don't, for reasons that a lot of people would frown upon, at least in the past. And it's just like, why in the world are we keeping them from achieving their full potential when they could actually do something that could literally change the world for the better in so many ways? Like,
because the gatekeepers and the people who are attempting to do good things aren't on the spectrum. There needs to be someone in the system to take over the system. Once that happens, it's a wrap. Yeah. I can't tell a football coach how to be a fantastic football coach. I can tell him how to be a fantastic human, how to organize some things, maybe some practices. But how in the world can someone who hasn't experienced or been on tell others on the spectrum how to go about education and blah, 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 and how blah, 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 blah. What do you know?
What do I know? I mean, look, man, I'm supposed to be the bigger man here. I don't know anything, It's like I'm just trying to learn as I go, and just,
The world is going to open up for you, Keegs. It's going to open up. It's going to open up, and it's going to be a better place for having you, flat out.
Same back to you, man. Look at the lives you've already touched. You said yourself, you've touched one, you touched me, and I can't tell you how many other people I've seen be touched by what you've said. You may not see it, but I have. Like it goes far and beyond, man. So all I can say is, and I can't say it enough, truly enough, but I'll just say it. Thank you, man.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you.
Love you, bro.
Yeah. Love you too, man. And I would just say, again, thanks for everything you've done. And thank you for being a guest on the show. That was a really good hour and a half we just had. And I'm sure a lot of people.
We got some goodies. We got some good content.
We got some goodies, man. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to relate to that. So thank you, man, for being on the show. We hope to have you on again soon. And also, let me just point out, guys, reminder, Steve runs Breakthrough Sports. He's the head basketball coach at Pacifica Christian High School. If you ever go see one of their games, please go say hi to him. He's a great guy and all. And if you're looking for some sports for your kids, please go to Breakthrough Sports. They do an amazing job. I've seen them do it. It's great and all. And he's also got a new podcast coming out soon with his wife.
Yeah, buddy.
Go check that out. I would love to be on guest on that at some point if you guys are looking for it. But all in all, just thanks for being here, and hope to see what other amazing things you're going to do in the near future.
Copy. Ooh, yeah. Awesome. I just thought of something. You will be on. You will be on this. Yep. Boom. Love
I
it.
would be happy, man. I would be happy. But until then, thanks for being on. It was a joy.
Good to see you, man.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode today. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and share it with others. And if you're looking for more great content, you can subscribe or follow us on this platform or go to our website at www.sportsonthespectrum.net. And if you think that you'd have a story worth sharing, don't hesitate to fill out a form on our website for the opportunity to be a guest on a future episode. Until then, be sure to stay safe, have fun, get dirty, and I will see you on the next episode of Sports on the Spectrum.